Let's dive into position battles here because this is the big topic of conversation. This is where everything goes. We got a couple of them. Wide receiver, the last wide receiver, corner, inside linebacker, the final running back spot, and then defensive tackle. Let's start with wide receiver 2. You look at it right now, it is most likely Roman Wilson versus Calvin Austin versus potentially Robert Woods, I guess, as you glance at the roster. You have been on the side of they're not going to bring somebody in. Let's act as if they're not for the time being. If it comes down to it, who walks away wide receiver 2? What's the starting lineup for the Pittsburgh Steelers at wide receiver come week 1?
I believe it will be DK Metcalf, of course, as your number 1 on the outside, followed by number 19, Calvin Austin, lining up as your number 2 on the outside. I do think and stand by until something changes that this is the wide receiver group that will begin the season with the Steelers. Happy to be proven wrong and happy whenever I am proven wrong to see what happens. But that being said, I do really think we are looking at a competition between Roman Wilson, who I think is going to come in determined and motivated and eager to prove that last year is now behind him and he's ready to contribute in a meaningful way. And the pressure is on Calvin Austin. The expectations have certainly risen for him. And I think he's going to respond accordingly. So for those reasons, I think he's going to be the number 2 when the season opens. How is that going to pan out? I don't know how confident I am still, as training camp is opening in a few days, but I do feel confident still in the belief that Calvin Austin is going to begin the season as the number 2 wide receiver. Do you still feeling differently?
I feel as if there will be a name we don't know, but I'll act as if there won't be. I think Calvin Austin's going to be the guy. Look, people will talk Calvin Austin's too small. Calvin Austin hasn't made the most of his opportunity. I think he's made more of his opportunity than he should have. I think he was part of the reason the Steelers traded George Pickens was because they just looked at it and said, if worst case scenario, DK, Calvin, and Roman are our guys, we can be okay with that. I don't think Calvin Austin can play on the outside as well as guys like Deontay Johnson did, who is what the Steelers are looking for. They're looking for that ridiculous route runner. But I also think that if you put Roman on the inside and somehow Calvin got to the outside and just became a route runner, I think he could be way more than a deep threat guy. And I think if you put the ball in his hands, he can make some crazy plays happen. So I would say I agree with you. Calvin Austin's going to be the guy that walks away, quote unquote, wide receiver 2. I think the 3 of them are the starters this year, but I still think that they bring in somebody else. But I'll ask that, okay? If they sign a Gabe Davis, let's not act as if they trade, because if they trade for somebody, you're getting crazy with hypotheticals. Let's go with the easy one. I don't think it's Amari Cooper. I don't think he's a guy on their mind. Keenan Allen, I've heard, is not on the Steelers' mind. When it comes to Gabe Davis, he's obviously a guy that came in here. If he's healthy in a little while, maybe they make a move for him. If Gabe Davis is here, do you think there's a shot Gabe Davis is wide receiver 4 for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yes, 100%. I think we're not sure, even if he gets the clean bill of health, which I think you and I both expect him to get at some point, and that will likely lead to him signing with the Steelers. I think that is the most likely free agent path the Steelers will end up taking. I think even if that happens, there's a chance that he comes in and it turns into another situation where a veteran wide receiver who has had success with his previous organization comes to the Steelers and quickly sees his role diminish into nothing at all, maybe into something reduced compared to what he was used to getting. And the statistics follow and they plummet as well. So I really like Gabe Davis. I think he could be a really good fit. I think he would give Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson a very strong push regarding the competition, and I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other. He could easily be the number 2, but I do think that it's just as likely for him to come in and be the number 2 behind DK Metcalf as it is for him to come in and lose out on reps and snaps to Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin. And that is less a criticism of Gabe Davis, more of a suggestion and vote of confidence in Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. And certainly, an endorsement from the Steelers coaching staff has been given to those 2 players already as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like the Steelers, whenever they do make a move for a wide receiver, if it's not a big splashy name, if it is a Gabe Davis, You're coming in here jumping on a moving train. You want to know what happens to guys who jump on a moving train unless your name is Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? You don't get the starting job. It just doesn't seem to happen. The Steelers are going to hope and pray that Roman and Calvin are the guys and that they could go from there. And I agree. I think that if Gabe Davis jumps in here in 2 weeks or something, that they're just going to hope that he replaces Robert Woods, that he is a guy that can be a veteran who comes off the bench, who adds depth on the outside, but that they already have their three. And I think that is a little bit better than last season. I really do. And I think the development of Calvin Austin alone and a better quarterback makes that group better than what they were a year ago. And I think Gabe Davis is an upgrade over what Van Jefferson would have been, but I don't think the Steelers would view him as a starting wide receiver next to DK Metcalf. I think they'd view him as wide receiver 4. When it comes to the other side of the wide receiver depth chart, that last wide receiver spot is certainly up for grabs. I believe they'll keep 5, maybe 6, but I have a hard time thinking it's going to be 6 simply because like you'd have to look at it and say, maybe a tight end's gone. Maybe you only keep one less offensive lineman, which I think is a dangerous game to be playing here. Maybe you don't keep Will Howard on the active roster, which I think is a dangerous game to be playing. I just look at it and say, most likely it's 5 wide receivers. Maybe there's 6. Maybe you feel differently. DK Metcalf, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin are 3 of them. Ben Skoranek, you got to believe, is the other. Am I wrong there? You look at the rest of that, Rock Taylor, Robert Woods, a potential addition here. Where do you go? Who do you see fit? How do you see the final piece of this pie being laid out for the Steelers?
I think that Robert Woods is going to probably secure that last roster spot as a wide receiver. Ben Skoranek, I agree with you 100%. His importance to the special teams units is too vital to not have him on the roster. Excuse me. And, he can pitch in sometimes. He can come in and play a few offensive series. He is a big body. So when he does get on the field, there's, he's not totally inept or anything like that. But I agree with you that I think they're going to ride with 5 wide receivers. I think it would be to their detriment to carry 6 if that meant that they were going to have one less offensive lineman or one other position, or not have Will Howard on the active roster to carry a Rock Taylor, or to make sure you still have Robert Woods on the roster if you do sign someone or go get somebody from outside of the organization. So I think right now I think I see the 5 wide receivers being DK, Calvin Austin, Roman, Ben Skoranek, and Robert Woods, and then Robert Woods probably will get bumped out if an outside addition joins the roster. But yeah, I think Ben Skoranek is basically a lock, not to be an offensive contributor, but he will be one of the wide receivers listed when that first depth chart comes out.
Without question, dude. Ben Skoranek was the best player on the Steelers special teams last season. He signed a 2-year deal this offseason, which clear as day tells you he is on the roster in 2025. Like, he's a key piece to what the Steelers did last year. And let's not act like it's like, oh, you get rid of Ben Skoranek, it's whatever. It's not whatever. This dude came up with play after play, multiple fumble recoveries in 2025. Like, the Ben Skoranek helped the Steelers win games on special teams. You're going to keep him around. Plus, if you need him on offense, he could catch the football. He's done that multiple times. He could catch the football. I think I sit in the same boat. Like, it'll be Robert Woods right now. I don't think Rock Taylor is going to come out here and challenge much. Maybe we're surprised, pleasantly surprised. But what we saw in minicamp and OTAs, Rock Taylor was a non-factor, and that would need to change pretty significantly to cut out a guy like Robert Woods. But I also think that how Robert Woods looks will depend on how quickly and how aggressive the Steelers are at maybe adding a smaller name like the Gabe Davis to be able to say, hey, okay, we need somebody else as of right now. You look at inside linebackers, the next one. How do you see that room shaken out?
When you talk about like maybe having extra bodies, and again, for the same reason I wouldn't want to have because I wouldn't want to carry like 6 wide receivers. I think it's because they have such a wealth of depth on the defensive side of the ball. you have Patrick Queen, you have Peyton Wilson, you have Cole Holcomb, you brought in Malik Harrison, you drafted Carson Bruner in the 7th round. And I understand 7th round pick, not going to come in and contribute immediately. The same thing can be said for, the Dante Kent and Sebastian Castro in terms of like keeping your expectations maybe in a more reasonable place. That being said, they have a lot of depth at the middle linebacking position. So I could see them carrying quote unquote 5 middle linebackers. I see Malik Harrison being someone who gets kind of put all over. He's going to probably line up at edge sometimes if they need to rotate him in there. He's going to be a special teamer. So I think he brings a lot of value in more than one place. I think Peyton Wilson is going to, by the end of the season, I've said this before, become basically the number 1 middle linebacker in Pittsburgh. And I think Patrick Queen and Cole Holcomb will still be playing important roles to support him. So I think they're going to have a lot of them. And so I could see 5 ILBs being on the 53-man roster. What says you, Mr. Noah?
No, I think it'll be 5 too. And I think Mark Robinson is the odd man out where we sit right now. It'll be Patrick Queen, Cole Holcomb, Peyton Wilson, Carson Bruner, and Malik Harrison. I'll make a little bit of a hot take here. I think Cole Holcomb gets a real shot at a starting job in 2025. I don't know if he becomes the starter, but I think he gets a real shot at being the starter in 2025. What are the odds he'd take advantage of it?
I think he would take advantage of it. I love what Cole Holcomb can bring. Those 8 games that he played in 2023 before his injury, he was such an effective player. I think the time that has passed and the concern that has developed regarding, how healthy is he, how explosive is he, which was a hallmark of his game, was him being an explosive downfield middle linebacker. The concern is fair. I think he is, he has worked so hard. He has not played in a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been. I think he is going to show that when healthy, he is still that same player. And I think because of it, he will certainly take advantage of the opportunity if he gets it. The biggest problem I see is not if Holcomb can take advantage of it, but between Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, who's going to give him that opportunity to get onto the field?
That's a great question. And I think it might be Peyton Wilson. I think Peyton Wilson might need a little bit more time. I have very high expectations for Peyton Wilson, but I don't think Peyton Wilson was a 3-down linebacker a year ago. I think he had some tackling issues. You need to adjust that. I could see Cole Holcomb taking advantage of that opportunity. I would predict it's Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, but I do think that Cole Holcomb's going to get some real shot to make a name for himself. And once we get out there, we'll see very quickly how back Cole Holcomb actually is for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then there's the big one here, which is the final running back spot. If they keep 4, I'm going to make a bold prediction here. If they keep 4 running backs this season, I think Trey Sermon gets the edge over Cordero Patterson. The Steelers loved that guy coming out of college. Loved him. I was shocked he didn't go to Pittsburgh. I think he's younger. He doesn't add much, but he can play special teams. Cordero's not going to be a kick returner this year. There's just no shot. It's going to be Kenneth Gainwell. You have too many other options. I would say Trey Sermon edges out Cordero Patterson as that 4th running back if they keep 4, which I think is a possibility.
I hate it. I will be hate it. I don't want them to keep 4 running backs. I don't think it's going to be the best use of their 53-man roster, but I think Trey Sermon has a real shot here. Again, it is, you cannot doubt how much the Steelers did really like him coming out of Ohio State. They love their Ohio State players. They love those types of guys. If he comes in here and he does exactly, he does that sort of like Jonathan Ward type of thing last year where you're like, all right, he can maybe come in, take a couple carries. If there's injury troubles, we can, use him sparingly when needed. I'm all for that. I'm also for it if it means, a certain someone doesn't make the roster. But I think if they keep 4 running backs, I'm going to get my ass kicked by Cordero.
One day, dude. One day it is going to happen, dude.
It's going to be awful. Pray for me, y'all. But I think
every time I make social clips for this podcast. I get, because I just plug them into an AI thing, and then it gives me like 40 of them, and 25 of them are Jacob shitting all over Cordero Patterson, and me going, all right, can't use that one, can't use that one. This one puts Jacob's life at danger. Can't use that
sorry.
All right, Cordero Patterson, where's he at?
I think this might be the hot take to match your hot take. I think if they keep 4 running backs, Cordero Patterson is 100% the 4th running back that they keep.
100%. That is a large number. That
Yep.
is a very large number. I don't know. I could see your point there. I just, at some point, you have to understand what makes your roster worse and better. And you've 4 tight ends that you're going to try to keep. Maybe you try to keep DJ Thomas Jones. You're already limiting yourself at wide receiver. You have so many edge rushers, so many inside linebackers, 400 corners that we're about to talk about here in a second. Like, you just can't. At some point, you got to say the dude who's going to get 4 snaps this season shouldn't be on the roster. The guy who can't play a kick or punt coverage shouldn't be on the roster. That's how I view, you know what I mean? If you were more than a kick returner, great, but you have no value outside of being a kick returner. And to me, that's where it gets rough. I mean, we'll see, dude. We're giving away a Cordero Patterson jersey if he makes the roster. I'm just gonna say it right now.
I'll literally buy it myself.
Yeah, we'll
for sure. Like, that's Mark. Someone save this and hold me to it. I'll buy it myself if he makes the roster.
If you're still alive.
If he doesn't kick my ass.
If you are able to see through the punch wounds in your eyes. We will get it. All right, let's end it with the big one here. Corner. Mm-hmm. You can look at the bottom of the depth chart. We'll talk about both bottom and top. Do you think there's going to be a real competition between Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay on the outside next to Joey Porter Jr.? Do you think Joey Porter Jr. could possibly be involved in this corner competition? And then on the other side of that, I mean, you got Corey Trice, Brandon Echols, James Pierre, Beanie Bishop, and Dante Kent, who walks out of there the winners to round out the depth chart.
I think the more that I have been stewing over the Steelers defense and what this might look like when, week 1 starts, I think Jalen Ramsey might be who matches up on the outside opposite of Joey Porter Jr., which, means Darius Slay might not be on the field whenever the quote unquote starters are on the field for the Steelers defense. Now, this is very dependent on what Juan Thornhill looks like, very dependent on if the Justin Simmons clamors come to fruition for the Steelers.
Yes.
But that being said, I think Jalen Ramsey, you bring him in here, you can't just have him back in the safety spot unless that is something that day one, on Wednesday or Thursday when we're up there, they're like, you know what, this is what I'm here to do, is to be the starting safety. Then we can be like, okay, that makes complete sense. Their search for the starting safety and safety depth is sort of over. But until that happens, Jalen Ramsey is your best cornerback. He has to be on the outside, number 1, number 2 on the depth chart until a position change happens or until something else happens. I just saw that too.
Someone would die. For those of you listening, the quote, I want a Jacob Cordero Patterson interview during training camp.
Request it.
Yep. I would love to see it. I'll get the interview of Jacob walking up to Cordero Patterson from a far distance, very zoomed in. That is what I will do. I agree with you. Like, I don't know what the Steelers look at. In my opinion, the best position for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to have Jalen Ramsey kind of be the utility piece, but it also hurts them because Jalen Ramsey, in my eyes, is your second best corner outside of Joey Porter Jr. And you maybe better than Joey Porter Jr. right now, but you're not going to sit Joey Porter. Like, he's the future of the position. But you want Jalen to be able to play on the inside. You want Jalen to be able to play a little bit of safety. You want Jalen to play on the outside. Darius Slay's just a backup on the outside. At that point, what do you do with Corey Trice? Because if Jalen's the starter on the outside and Darius Slay is the backup on the outside, Corey Trice is the 4th on the outside, then where do you go with Brandon Echols? There's just, who I think is a quality player, to be honest. I just think that leads to more questions than any other position so far. but I see where you're coming from. My guess is Joey Porter, Darius Slay are the outside guys. Jalen Ramsey's on the inside, and then Jalen moves all over the place. And then when you're in your base package, Jalen is on the outside, and Joey Porter Jr. is on the outside, and Darius Slay comes off the field. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that will be best, and I think the thing is, like, I don't know if I'm interested in Jalen Ramsey becoming the utility player in order to make sure Brandon Echols and Corey Trice can contribute in some more meaningful way in 2025. Agreed. Not that that's what you were saying there, but like if the plan is for him to become that utility man, if it is like the Rod Woodson effect or whatever, where they're like, we're transitioning him to safety to prolong his career and find more ways to utilize him, then that makes complete sense, right? Then you have a positional hole for Brandon Echols, Corey Trice, Beanie Bishop, etc. to battle for. But if you have your base package where you have Jalen Ramsey and Joey Porter Jr. on the outside, Darius Slay's off the field, you have Deshaun Elliott and maybe Juan Thornhill as your safeties, I mean, like that feels like a best case scenario to me. And then you have someone like a Corey Trice rounding it out, and maybe Brandon Echols, because you can kick one of them to the inside in case you need him. But I think I would still be okay with keeping those 5, but I'm not okay with creating a larger positional battle for an increased role. And by doing so, moving Jalen Ramsey around. If it's the plan, okay. If it is a reaction to getting the sort of depth pieces an opportunity, not okay with it.
Yeah, spot on. You know what I mean? Spot on. And last year, different. Corey Trice is still viewed as like the future. You don't know what's going to happen. The Steelers have clearly shifted from there to say, Corey Trice there. Great. But like, if Corey Trice didn't make the roster, which I expect him to, but if he didn't make the roster this season, I wouldn't be stunned. You know, like I would say it would have to mean Beanie Bishop, Dante Kent, and Brandon Echols look very good. But if you are comfortable with those guys and Corey Trice is 3 years deep and unhealthy, like it wouldn't stun me to say we moved on from a 7th round pick that we like, but maybe doesn't hold the value that he held a year ago.
For sure. Yeah. If Corey Trice has any injury troubles, unfortunately, he's done. Because there is just too much, I don't want to say talent, but there are too many players battling or in competition for these depth spots. And I love Corey Trice's potential. How can you not love the physicality, the physical tools, the long reach? Like, he just seems like one of those shutdown corners on the outside. And then you just can't ever see it come to fruition on the field consistently. So if that happens again in camp, yeah, then I would expect a Beanie Bishop or, I would expect a Dante Kent to like really have a great chance of making the roster. But yeah, until that happens, I think Corey Trice is a pretty solid lock to make this team. They have wanted him to be an impact player for so long. I think he's going to keep getting opportunities until they simply can't give him any more.